So welcome back to another Zen Business Class, the one and only Jacob Aldridge. How you doing?
Look, it's a very interesting year this week has been. What a crazy time. As you know, we kind of keep touching on and talking about everything just gets more and more surreal, and yet the key thing, the key conversation I'm having with a lot of people, and I know you are too, is just what an opportunity exists right now on a personal
Mm.
space, and as we get into business and some of those kind of things as well. And the reality is there's a lot of history. We've been through a lot of things as a human race, and I think there's a lot of things that we can learn from history that maybe we're not quite ready to jump into some of that. We're still in the middle of whatever the heck is going on, but there's an awful lot of good, meaningful personal and business development conversations going on, and over and above the stuff, that's really cool.
Yeah. And hasn't the landscape changed even since the last time we caught up, which was only a couple of weeks ago?
It's amazing how fast everything seems to be shifting, and that's exciting too.
So that's what I want to talk about. You talk about history there. I want to run through the economic cycle of emotions, which you kind of touched on last conversation that we had. And if we have some time, maybe to share the four stages, or the four-stage process that you've created for business owners that working through a recession. So, what is the economic cycle of emotions?
The economic cycle, like an awful lot of the strategic frameworks that I use, that you and I have talked about here in the past, there's the intellectual side of things, which is kind of nice and boom and bust, and interest rates go up, interest rates come down, property prices, share prices, all of those kind of things that you can analyze intellectually. The reality is that what sits at the heart of it all, what sits at the heart of every strategic business framework, is the emotion, is the human,
Yeah,
and the
absolutely.
economic cycle, as we're all realizing right now, is very much the same. So in good times, when the markets are growing, when your business is booming, you're going to be feeling a lot of up, exuberant, external, what we might call positive emotions. Without looking to judge one way or the other. So, you're going to be excited, you're going to be thrilled, you're going to be euphoric, you're going to feel like you're on top of the world, 10 foot tall and bulletproof. And then when the cycle naturally changes, and it is a cycle, we go from, winter into spring. So too, economically, we go from boom into downturn. That's what we're
Mm.
experiencing for the most part now. Those emotions start to shift. And as they shift into that more inward, reflective, what some people might call negative emotions, we start to, and the depth shifts. So you might at first go through some anxiety, maybe some denial about what's really going on, or the longer term impact that that's going to have. Fear will kick in, desperation, panic as things potentially get worse and worse. You may even reach a point towards the bottom of the economic cycle where you're despondent, or not clinically depressed, but just really down, disillusioned in that well of feeling that this will never change. And just like at the top of an economic cycle where you're 10 foot tall and bulletproof and nothing's going to change, and it does, so too when you're down in that well, things will pick up. The economy will go around in cycles, and that will start to shift upwards again. Hope and relief and optimism. The interesting thing I find is how many business owners follow that cycle, and follow that cycle even in good times from a space of fear, which is to
Mm.
say that
Yeah.
right now when things aren't great for an awful lot of business owners, they're riding that fear all the way down. They're trying to deny it, deflect it. And as we know, what you resist persists. The feelings are not facts, that these are useful guides for you as a leader within your business, but you don't have to buy into them. They're not real. They're things that come and go, and are guide points, not reality. But they'll write it all the way down. They will act through their feelings. They will blame their feelings. But similarly, in good times, an awful lot of people get caught up in their own greed, which, as we know,
Mm.
is fear in a different guise. And so they never actually manage to master the emotional cycle of the economic cycle. And as a result, they put themselves at effect of what is happening in the economy. instead of being at cause for what they create in their own business.
Yeah, very good. And I mentioned on the last episode that it's critically important that people do a constant check-in or a very regular check-in with how they're feeling emotionally, what's their emotional state, because that does filter the information, that does flavor the way in which we view the world. And so this ties in perfectly with that. Is, okay, where am I? What am I feeling right now? It's so funny that the F word, the feelings word, that is so anti to or counter to the masculine, let's not worry about our feelings, let's just get on with business and charge through it, is the very thing, or one of the major influences of our decision-making process, and especially in a market such as this, how that can have a negative effect on the outcomes.
And your team are experiencing this. It's one of the I was going to say the great things about the recession. In some ways, you can kind of see it in that regard, is that we are all in this together. And I'm hearing, as I'm sure you are, many of your listeners would be hearing, so many great stories of businesses where everybody is stepping up. You know, one of my clients had the conversation. They're still doing okay. They haven't had to cut hours, cut staff, but they're mindful that from a forward order perspective, they've gone from being booked 4 weeks in advance to being booked 2 weeks in advance. So that is, they're keeping a very close eye on it. And they went out to the team and they said, this is what's happening. You're seeing a lot in the media about businesses shuttering. We're not there. This is the change. They're being very, very open. And the business owner said to me afterwards, he has just been amazed at how every single team member has stood up. These team members that he kind of thought didn't, at the end of the day, really give two hoots about him, his family, his business. They just saw it as a job. Right now, they recognize what is going on and what's at stake for their job and the business and their team and their colleagues, and people are really stepping up, which is fantastic.
Isn't that a great example of when there is a cause or something greater than oneself as an individual, how that really can band together and pull together a team and create
I hadn't really made that connection. That is a really good point. That when you get that purpose,
that's right. We talk about it all the time, and this is just it's almost like a common enemy now. It seems to be that they've got this common kind of goal where we're all working together at something greater than the individual, and we talk about it from how do we. In fact, there's a question for you, because one of my clients was asking, well, how do I? Because I've actually had I don't know, at least half a dozen clients who have had record months in the last month.
Yep.
Right. And purely as a result of their team stepping up and banding together. And one of my clients asked, and I know she'll be listening, and she said, well, how do I get my team to band together without a pandemic or without a crisis? And I said, well, that's the conversation that we've been having, for quite some time, is what's that common vision or that common goal?
And now we have an anchor. Now we have something to, and it's a fantastic question. I don't think we need to rush to an answer, because we're going to be going through this for a little while longer. But how fantastic it will be as those businesses tick up, as the markets change, to be able to sit down and go, hey team, so remember how we all banded together and we beat the coronavirus recession as a business, as a team. What is it that's going to keep us with that level of focus and excitement for the long term? That's going to be an amazing conversation to be having.
Great inquiry to be in. Absolutely. So something to think about for post, on the other side of this. All right. So speaking of the transitions and the phases and what phases we're currently in, you've got a 4-stage process here. That you're working on with a Facebook group that you're running at the moment called Don't Waste a Good Recession, something you've been working on for a fairly long time, because the writing was on the wall. So can you run me through your 4 stages?
Yeah, and this is, not something that I've conjured out of whole cloth. This was my experience working across Europe and North America through the Great Recession. What in Australia we called the global financial crisis, because most of the crisis happened globally. We were fairly well insulated, as I think a lot of Australian business owners are realizing now what a real recession feels like. And the advice I got at that point was, don't waste a good recession. Creates an awful lot of opportunities. And so the 4 phases of any recession for a business owner. First, we have to respond. As the world turns, we need to understand what it is about this recession that's different. Every recession is different. This one, driven by pandemic, the immediacy of the impact on unemployment rates, for example, is essentially unprecedented. I'm trying to avoid using that word because so much of what we're seeing isn't unprecedented. That is different. That hasn't happened in a recession before. It's normally more slow moving. The work from home, all of these things. So the first 3 months, which, you know, I'm broadly in Australia, most of the developed English speaking world, I'm thinking is March, April, May of 2020. That's the respond phase. Your business has taken a blow. As Mike Tyson said, we all have a plan until we get punched in the face. We all got punched in the face. You know, you've got to just sort of get steady on your legs again. So respond. Beyond that, then that's where we really get a chance to seize the opportunity. There's more market share, more brand awareness, more product innovation created in a downturn than there is at any other point of the economic cycle. So Absolutely. From respond, we then have to plan, we have to execute, and then we profit, we grow. The key point is, when do you execute? And that's the challenge. And I'm certainly not alone out there doing a lot of research into what shape is this recession going to take. Because if it's a quick recession, what is often called a V-shaped recession, kind of comes down on an angle, hits the bottom, bounces very quickly back up, then you're going to have 3 to 6 months of planning. And then once we get to that bottom, as we approach it, bang, that's when you've got to execute. You've got to get ready for how your business is transformed heading into the new economy. I don't think we're going to have one of those recessions. I think the economic indicators have fallen too fast. We're going to have something that looks more like the letter L. It's kind of, instead of an angle of a V, it's a pretty sharp drop. And as a result, it's going to be a fairly flat bounce along the bottom for possibly 12 to 18 months. Sometimes an L-shaped recession lasts longer. I don't think we're necessarily going to have that situation in Australia, the UK. US, I'm still a little bit off. But that means that you've got longer to plan, which is fantastic. You're going to be very careful when you execute some of those changes, because going too early is sometimes as detrimental as waiting too long.
Yeah, and there could be some false indicators there that come out of it as well. Yeah. So it's almost, we talk about hockey stick growth at the other side of the equation. This is hockey stick decline, where it's kind of on an angle down, flat line, and then the opportunity to come back up.
And it will pick up. A lot of people are saying, is this another GFC, global financial crisis? That was a W-shaped recession. We actually had 2 recessions in fairly quick succession. That's a fairly, it's not common, however, it is quite cyclical. And indeed, the closest analogy to the GFC recession was the late 70s, early 80s, where we had a W-shaped recession followed by several years of sort of steady incremental growth. And then bang, there was the 1987 crash, Black Monday. That was an L-shaped recession, kicked along, you know, finally really kicked us in Australia, 1991, which was the last official recession Australia had. And so the parallels between then and now are quite striking. There's a lot that we can learn from that history. If we wait for the right time, you know, respond as we have to, get the right plans in place, get ready to execute. And the 1990s was an incredible time for wealth creation. The 1920s was an incredible time for wealth creation. The 2020s, on the other side of this recession, is going to be an incredible time for wealth creation, for purpose manifestation. There's an awful lot of excitement and opportunity at the other side of this recession if we can respond well now, ride it out, and do what we need to with our business and our families.
Awesome, bud. So what can people do to respond? What are your recommendations for responding to the current phase that we're in?
And the very nature of responding is that it's going to shift a little bit and be different for different people. I run on Don't Waste a Good Recession weekly. We do an economic update. We do some weekly priorities. We jump into a little bit of depth about this. And that's out there, the Facebook group, YouTube, Spotify, getting that out to as many people as want to listen for those really up-to-date conversations. The main things in Respond is you've got to go back to your tribes, back to your community. So the first conversations that we needed to be having were with our team. And a lot of us were having those around, how are we going to work from home? How are we going to manage the business, the workflow, all of these things in a new reality? But also checking in on the team and making sure you keep communicating. People think that, you know, the news is bad, I'm not going to tell anyone. silence is worse than whatever the reality is. With silence, your team will fill it with their biggest fears. Make sure that you're responding by communicating with them more. Good news, bad news, no news. Then you've got to make sure you get out very quickly to your clients. And I'm introducing, this is an interesting trivia fact for you, Simon. I won the University of Queensland Australian History Prize.
I heard.
Way back. So I'm introducing a lot of people to this it's a bit old fashioned. It's called a telephone.
What? You're expecting me to call people?
Yeah, right. Write that down. Look it up. Google it. It's older than Google. Clients, depending on your business, how many clients you've got, alumni, previous clients, maybe prospects from the last year or the last 3 years. And I don't know about you, my inbox is heaving with messages right now.
Yes.
There's, how we're responding, how we care. Here's the webinars that we're doing. Here's how we're changing. All of this kind of stuff. There's way too much noise. And so even though I can send an email, might take me an hour to craft a good email, I can send it out to 1,000, 5,000, 10,000 people. That's efficient. It's not effective right now. Picking up the phone, checking in on them, finding out how they're going, how are they feeling, what is it that they need, and then looking to fairly quickly switch up your business model if need be. And, as you said, a lot of clients having record months at the moment. Don't get caught up in the fact that there's all this noise and all this stuff in the media. What's happening in your business, your team, your clients, because you may very well be placed to ride this thing out far better than the bad news stories.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. Now, I saw that you were talking about changing your sales approach right now. And one of the bits of advice I've been working with my clients on is just like that, pick up the phone, and now let's have a look. How can we help? How can we support? What do we need to do? Can you maybe share your process or approach on that?
And we've got about 4 hours, don't we, to have that conversation. I mean, the four things around how sales has already changed thanks to and I'm calling it the coronavirus recession. I know I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself, with some of the technical stuff, but
you're a visionary. It'll stick.
Yeah. So the four things around sales: your sales process, your style, your actual product and packaging, and then the pricing. So, from a process perspective, we're using technology. There's an awful lot of sales meetings that used to happen face to face. You used to press the flesh. You'd go out for a boozy lunch. It's now happening on Zoom, on Google Hangouts, on FaceTime, all of these. So that's changing the process. What does that mean for your sales style? What needs to evolve in that regard? If you didn't come into the recession with a strong, consistent sales process, you're going to need to get one pretty fast. And the same is true of your nurturing process. If you just relied on people to pop up and one out of every 3 or 4 bought the product and you were happy with that, you're going to struggle in the new reality. You need to make things happen faster, make things more consistent, make the process. Your style in sales needs to be much more direct. Connection and direction is the way I'm describing that style. You've got to demonstrate some of that empathy. You've really got to get to feelings, which is good sales practice anyway. And then you have to be more direct. And for me, for example, who is in the fortunate position of being open for clients at any point in time, I run spare capacity so that I'm available. I haven't needed to chase clients in a long, long time. So I tend not to be very direct in my sales approach. Here's how I can help. If you're interested, let's have some fun together. Shifting into this economy, I need to be much more direct, and so do many business owners. You can't be enough to just put the opportunity in front of somebody. You need to be quite specific, quite direct, show them leadership, because right now they're hurting as well. They're lost, they're uncertain. They need that confidence from you.
Yeah, 100%. It's I think that's what's catching a lot of sales teams and business owners, unaware or catching them out, is that, you're coming out of a good market. You can just present the opportunity and people can opt in and, you can pick and choose. But now going into a downwards market, into a recession market, you definitely need to have that extra level of intentionality, that extra level of leadership to lead them through a process, that extra level of, like you said, that direction. because that's what they're looking for. Yeah, really good.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
really
then,
good.
product packaging, pricing, don't react, respond to what the needs are. I'm seeing an awful lot of people who are suddenly giving a lot of things away for free.
Mm.
Your value didn't disappear overnight. In fact, for most businesses, your value has increased. It's just that, the availability of your clients to spend the money may have changed. So listen to what they need. And maybe that is, and that could be an interesting conversation for us to have another day. Maybe you need to create an entirely new product or service. Often you're taking what you have, you're unbundling it so that it's more bite-sized, easier to buy, or you're bundling things together so it's a clearer solution that people can buy. And maybe through your whole marketing, sales, client service process, you are being a little more generous. You're giving some things away. You've got to get that balance right. But don't start just giving it all away, because, and here's the worst thing that can happen if you do that. It's not that you will lose money through the recession. Many businesses will absolutely struggle, even those that survive through the recession. So it's not that you're giving stuff away now and that's going to hurt economy. It's when you get out the other side, you will have spent 6 months, 18 months telling the market that an awful lot of what you do is worthless. And then you're going to go, hey, it's good times again. Here's the $10,000, $100,000, $3 million bill. And your client's going to look and go, no. But I'm going to this other guy who I think is actually a better fit now. And you will have completely shot yourself in the foot, both through the recession and coming out the other side.
Yeah, great points there, bud. Great points. So how can people get involved in the Don't Waste a Good Recession?
Facebook, YouTube, Spotify, Google Don't Waste a Good Recession. And importantly, live it. Don't waste a good recession.
That's it. Mate, thanks for being on the show.
Always.